السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Today we're looking at the name of Allah Azza wa Jal, Al-Qadir, also Al-Qadir, Al-Muqtadir, different descriptions of Allah Azza wa Jal. And Al-Qadir means the one who is capable. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His capability does not encounter inability, ajz, any inability or fatigue, futur. No ajz, no futur. So no inability, no fatigue. And He is capable of doing anything. So then we wanted today to look at a da'wah benefit, more so than a spiritual benefit. Why? Because everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants to ask you tough questions, hoping that you won't be able to answer them. Especially everyone wants to ask you tough questions about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you're unable to answer them, they've defeated you. And it also means in their mind that you have a false religion. So concerning the qudra, the ability of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people ask questions like, can Allah Azza wa Jal create a four-sided triangle? What do you think? Can Allah Azza wa Jal create a four-sided triangle? But keep the answer to yourself. Can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create a rock that is so huge that no living thing can move it? And the believer says with yaqeen and iman, yes. Then they ask you, can He move it? And with yaqeen and iman you say, yes. Then they tell you, that means He cannot create something that is so big that no living thing can move it, because He can move it. Can Allah create a door that no living thing can open? You say yes. Can He open it? You say yes. That means He cannot create a door that no living thing can open, because He can open it. One time a Christian missionary, we were having a discussion, and he said, isn't God capable of doing whatever He wants? I said, yeah. Remember his question of doing whatever He wants. I said, yeah. He said, then why couldn't He beget a son if He wanted to? Why are you guys making a big deal? If He wanted to have a son, He can have a son. Alright. So, to answer these questions, we want to cover 3 points. Number one is, never just accept the person's premise for the question. If someone just asks you a question, if there's something wrong with it, don't start to answer it. Right? Someone tells you, why does God need us to worship Him? No matter how you answer it, you've given a wrong answer. Even if you give an answer from the Quran, it's incorrect. Because the first thing you have to correct the question. He said, why does God need us to worship Him? No matter what you say, to worship Him. You first correct the question. He is not in need of us worshiping Him. Allah does not need anything from us. You correct it. Why did God command us to worship Him? Then you give the explanation you want to give. So, the four-sided triangle, the premise of the question is incorrect. Don't answer that question. When somebody comes to you and says, can God create a four-sided triangle? Don't give him the yaqeen answer. And inshallah He can create a 17-sided triangle, and He will create inside your eyeballs. And calm down. First of all, tell him, I don't know where you studied math, but once a triangle has more than 3 sides, it's not a triangle anymore. And if you remember kindergarten, squares, rectangles, diamond-shaped parallelogram, anything. But it's not a triangle anymore. Don't just go along with the question. That's the first rule. Second thing, the scholars mention, without stuttering, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot do impossibilities. When you say this sentence to a room of Muslims, they want to tweak your sentence. No, the scholars say Allah Azza wa Jal cannot do things that are impossible. So if somebody asks you, can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be moving very quickly and at the same time absolutely still? Don't just say yes. Tell them, what kind of a person asks a question like this? إلا واحد غبي. نكون صريحين يعني. حمار. Yeah? Nobody asks a question like this except there's something wrong with him. I walk up to you and I ask you, is it possible to do something impossible? Tabi Habibi, do you speak English? Do you know what impossible means? How can you just ask me, is it possible to do something that's impossible? So the scholars don't hesitate to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not do impossibilities. And someone says, well, but maybe we can't do them and Allah can do them. The scholars say, Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't die and cannot die. So then when someone asks you, can God kill himself? So why are you asking this question? What kind of a person are you? You already know something is impossible. Who comes to you and asks you, so just go learn English all over again, or whatever language they're asking in. So you can't ask me, can God kill himself? You can't ask me, can God be moving and absolutely still at the same time? When was the last time you got to your station when the bus was moving and never left its place? Is this how things work? Then, these are these things concerning impossibilities. Can God steal? Okay, let me ask you a question. Right now, open your wallet and steal some money from yourself. Is that possible? It's an impossibility. How can you steal money from yourself? But everything belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal. So how can you steal then? So that's the first thing. Don't be hesitant to explain what an impossibility is, and you should know better than to ask me this question. The second thing, the scholars say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only does things that befit His greatness and His majesty. So when the Christian asked me, why couldn't God beget a son if He wanted to? I told him, my answer to him was, can God steal? Does God lie? He immediately started going like this. He got it, fahm. Oh, okay. Allah only does things that befit His greatness and His majesty. So things that don't befit His majesty, He doesn't do. So you can ask me, why couldn't God have a son if He wanted to? Having a son is good for me and you. We get old, they take care of us, we die, they continue our name. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ever-living. He is al-ahad, He has no partner. He's not in need of a son, someone carrying His name or anything of that sort. So for me and you, it's a great thing to have a son. But for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it would be an insult. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only does things that befit His majesty. We'll conclude by saying this is the great blessing that the Muslims have of having the names and attributes of Allah, having these sublime descriptions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you look at the Christians, I'll take them as an example, or even the Jews, because in their Bible, you have a description of a God that's not this powerful God, all-knowing God, wise God. They have a God that came down to earth in the form of a man to wrestle with Yaqub alayhi salam. Some of you are familiar with this passage in the Bible. He wrestled with him. Astaghfirullah al-Azim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come down to earth and wrestle a man that He created, and it gets worse. He couldn't defeat him, so he cheated. So he touched him here and dislocated his hip socket. And that's why some Jews don't eat the meat around this area. And he called him Israel, which means to struggle with God. Billah, I don't know what else to say. But that's why. Now, I'll conclude with this. This is something from the late scholar Shaykh Muhammad al-Ghazali from Egypt, rahimahullah. He said something interesting. He said, I wondered at why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the story of the angels visiting Ibrahim alayhi salam so much. هَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثُ ضَيْفِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ. So many times mentioned in the Quran when the angels came to visit Ibrahim alayhi salam. And he said, I figured out why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it so many times. Because in the Bible, it's not the angels who visited Ibrahim alayhi salam. Astaghfirullah, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself coming down to visit a man, knocking on a door and things like that. So we have this great blessing and great honor of knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He truly is. Knowing His names and His attributes gets you to respect Allah Azza wa Jal. And those people who lack those names and attributes, that's why they ridicule their God in their movies and in their cartoons and in their books. And even in their Bible. I used to have this Bible many years ago called the Good News Bible. And they draw God in it. They draw God in it. Some guy with long flowing robes, Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel, the famous painting, drawing God. Because they don't know Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's the honor that we have. Jazakumullah khairan. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.